Alright, I want to do an updated video on this before I deliver it. I forgot I was going to do a video. So, I've got a previous video of teardown showing the destruction. I've got a little engine build video. And then I got it together and I went and test drove this thing. And I thought it was getting hot. So I drove it and it was like 230, 235 degrees and I freaked out. And I came back over and started messing with it, and we've rebuilt the engine, new radiator, new water pump, new thermostat. They were all Chrysler OEM parts, and I didn't have the bumper on at the time. And so anyways, come to find out, which you guys probably already know by now, these things run at 230 degrees. That's fairly normal to them. This is where this thing wanted to run at, was 230. So, and then I would go out. So after that, I went and test drove it, and I'd put it in 4 high, and I'd go up a hill or tow a trailer, and I could get up to 248 degrees, and the temperature gauge would start showing a little bit hot, but not necessarily overheating. When I did the cylinder heads on this, they were warped more so on this outside edge right in the center. And this thing totally melted down. So a lot of people said, yeah, that's how these things are supposed to run, just leave it. If you haven't seen the last video, there's the intake. The intake started to melt. Valve covers started to melt. They had melting issues on them. AC compressor was loose and wore out. Clutch had its own issues not related to, to that. It blew the head gaskets. Here's the oil cooler. So the oil cooler started to melt, and it was sending plastic down into the engine. So that's not good. I mean, so I don't think they do that at 230, but I wouldn't be surprised getting up close to 250. Those knock sensors were melted. I mean, this thing just totally melted down. So given, yes, he got it hot. He got it extremely hot. They overheated it. But there's no buffer capacity there. You're running at 250. How long before it screams at you? From my looking into it, it's about 270 before this thing starts screaming at you. Plastic starts to break down around 270. So, I'm not going to build an engine and send it out and warranty it that the control system thinks 270 is fine. Let me see if we look down in here. So, we got rid of that part that's right there. I can show you from underneath. That probably builds up a lot of heat. There was some wiring and stuff burned up in here. And there's a really, really, really hot part that goes right in there. So we got rid of all that. Let me show you from underneath. So, straight pipe up to the head. V-band clamp here, V-band clamp here, V-band clamp here. Everything is removable. We had to add another muffler into it because it was extremely loud. One more V-band clamp here. So muffler is removable. And we have the factory muffler in the back. To quiet it down, to get it back to normal. So, let's see the list of things. So we put in a 180 degree Misimoto thermostat. Like I said, radiator's brand new, just stock radiator. I programmed the fans to low fan turns on at 190, high fan turns on at 200 to try to keep this thing where I think it should be. So now we've got buffer capacity, and I reprogrammed the gauge to where This is not a linear gauge. Let me show you how these gauges are set up. So we've got a gauge off of a 2010 Jeep in here. The controls to the back of it. So this gauge is now 200 degrees, or sorry, it's 180 in the center, and it's like 230 something over here. So right now at 180 to 200 degrees, it runs right here in the center, right where I want it. So that way, if it overheats, he's gonna say it gets up to 230, 235. The engine is designed for that. It's not gonna harm the engine, but that means something is going wrong. He's got the radiator clogged or whatever. So fans are reprogrammed, new thermostat. It's got the billet aluminum oil cooler in it, brand new intake manifold, brand new valve covers, all brand new Mopar sensors. And then I reprogrammed the fuel ratio to be 12.5 to 1, fat and happy. It stays there. It doesn't cycle anymore because that's just for catalytic converters. So now it runs good. I was a little bit worried about airflow. If he puts a winch and stuff on here, like I said, now he'll know that it's overheating. He looked like he was having overheating issues before. Someone thought, you know, I think these are obviously aftermarket stuff that someone was trying to get heat out of the engine. So anyways, this thing runs great now. This thing runs way better than it did before. I can go out, tow a trailer, and it'll hold 200 degrees. I can go four-wheel driving. We went and rented Jeeps in Moab a few years back. And 4 high in Moab, these things overheat and puke out coolant. Stock gears, 35-inch tires, they struggle. They don't, those fans, the fan doesn't turn on originally till 225, and the high is like 235. And it struggles to keep that temperature under heavy load. So far we went out, put it in a load, 205, something like that. I'll show you going down the road. Does its thing. I would highly suggest doing these modifications. I'm personally, yeah, I understand they're meant to do that. This thing has buffer capacity. Hopefully it's reliable and does its thing now. I guess that's about it for this video. I'll show a little bit driving down the road and some of the posts I looked at and everything like that. So let's run this thing down the road while I deliver it, and we will show you guys some temperatures. So we are 84 degrees ambient temp, 172 starting out. Gauge is in the middle. So still cold. Thermostat probably hasn't opened yet. So let me go run it down the road and let it warm up. We're at a light, 201 degrees. We're idling. It's in the center. We got down to 73 degrees outside. So it's cooling down at the light. Let's drive it down the road and put some load on it. Doing a little over 60 mile an hour. 73 degrees outside. Fifth gear. Bring it up to 75 miles an hour. There's 75. This is pretty low geared, 35-inch tires, so even with a 180 degree thermostat, it gets hotter than I thought it would, but these engines are weird. They're this is definitely different than what I'm used to. So it looks like we are, I imagine it's got to climb a little bit more than that. Like I said, when I was doing this before, this was 235 or so. So I don't know if we just went back up in temperature or down in temperature. I didn't pay attention. 206.6. All right, so if you guys get the point. So I don't know where it tops out at. I'd have to, and then how much temperature affects it if we go out on a 100-degree day. But I was able to get this thing way hotter than I thought that was a good idea. So factory might have thought it was a good idea. You have to remember, they do not do that for reliability or anything. They do that for emissions. They don't care if it kills the engine. They need the engine to last 100,000 miles, and then they're done with it. So they do this to get those catalytic converters hot, and they were running this thing a little bit lean. So they do that so they can pass emissions with these things, whatever the emission standards are, but it's not for reliability. It's not good for the engine. The engine is not made of any different material than any other engine out there. It's made of the same aluminum and the same plastic. And if you got another engine to 230, 240 degrees, you would freak out. It's too damn hot. So we actually came down in temperature now. So we're at 204, so it looks like 206.6 was the peak at 75, going down the road at 73 degrees outside. 75 ambient temperature on the scanner. Anyways, so I watched a lot of videos on this. A lot of people had a lot of information, and these gauges are crazy on these vehicles, and the temperature's crazy, and everything's kind of odd. Mishimoto was the only one that I found that made a lower degree thermostat, and we kind of had some interesting things on springs. There's some people that had some different spring pressures, so we actually used a light spring on it that we found, and still now we're at 203. But I would highly suggest this. I'm not screwing around with running this. And we've been to, so I've got the 2010 with the 3.8. It does really well temperature wise. But we went to Moab and rented the newer ones, and they all overheated. And my 2010, which is really not that well maintained, didn't overheat at all. So the problems with these years, whatever these 3.6 Pentastars, I don't know how long they used them and if they improved them at all, but so alright, I won't draw this video out too long. Thanks for watching. Check out the other videos on the teardown and the rebuild. This thing runs great now, and maybe I'll give an update next summer or something and see how she's doing. He's actually taking it to Moab this weekend. So thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video.